My first sales job was 18 years old, going door to door selling house painting services, actually. So the company I worked with, I honestly didn't know that a door to door was a part of that job. So when springtime rolled around, they're like, okay, cool, you're going to drive home over the weekend. You're going to go door to door selling house painting services. And I was like, oh shit, okay. I thought we were going to get leads I didn't even know what a lead was actually back then. I really fucking love sales. I love the outcome based aspect of selling. So the way that I got more into inside sales was, fast forward 4 years, I was a sales manager with that company. And then one of the first things they tasked me with was starting a call center. So I'm a 22-year-old kid, didn't know anything about working in corporate America, didn't know anything about dialers and software and like all of this other kind of stuff. Like show up and that first impression, it's just like on the phone, your first impression, the first 10 seconds of smiling, being confident, addressing the person, your tonality, all of that stuff is like 10 times more important in person.
It's like trial by fire experience.
Oh, dude, yeah. And now I'm like cold calling, like, dude, the worst thing someone can do is hang up the phone on you. Like, come on. There are entire sales teams that are scared to call cell phones. Like, that's a way to increase your pickup rate. There are so many ways to do that, but just bringing the humanity back into sales with all the AI stuff going on. And I'm a huge fan of AI. Don't get me wrong. You have to be using it. But the people that I see struggling at cold calling are not good at it.
What we're finding is cold calling is the number one channel right now, and it's what's bringing the most meetings for all our clients.
It's literally like 100 to 1 emails to calls. It's insane.
You have to talk to people. It's inevitable.
It's a little stuff like, as a sales leadership team, you're blasting out all of the, hey, here's who's closed the biggest deal and here's who's at the top of the leaderboard right now. But what about sharing out customer stories when the product gets a great result for a customer? People have been talking about forever just around like the business acumen and understanding of the personas and the people that you sell to. It's easier than ever to get that information.
Where else are you going to get that? You don't get that from email because they're not going to respond to you. Don't get that from LinkedIn if they don't connect with you and respond to your LinkedIn request.
The idea that just because someone is really senior, that if they do decide to pick up the phone, that they're not going to be responsive to that. I mean, that's like, these people are actually more responsive. These are the people like you guys. These are people that built the company. Like, they respect the hustle. It's it's the Godfather. It's the offer you can't refuse, dude. It's like, I would feel stupid saying no to that.
Yeah.
So I really think the future is the offer. It's like, what are you going to give people that is different? And I think the big elephant in the room is the marketing engine is the ceiling of your outbound engine. Like, you can only be as good at outbound as you are at marketing.
Welcome back to another episode of Prospecting Pros. Today on our show, we have 𝐽𝐮.𝐫𝐿. Thanks for coming on and spending some time with us.
What's up, fellas? Good to be here.
Glad to
We
have you,
also
man.
have Chris Lingenfelter. Thanks for joining, my co-host. So the way I like to start every show is get a little bit of background on you, Jason, like how you got to where you are today. I was taking a look at your LinkedIn profile and some of your history, but like, you've got a big following. You see the ins and outs of a lot of different companies. How did you get to this point?
Yeah, I first got into sales. My first sales job was 18 years old, going door to door selling house painting services, actually. So the company I worked with, I honestly didn't know that a door to door was a part of that job. So when springtime rolled around, they're like, okay, cool, you're going to drive home over the weekend. You're going to go door to door selling house painting services. And I was like, oh shit, okay, I thought we were going to get leads, or I didn't even know what a lead was actually back then. But what I figured out through that process was like, I really fucking love sales. I love the outcome based aspect of selling. It was a full commission job. I didn't really find the door to door to be that bad. It was tough, like the first time I did it, for sure, like getting the nerve to do it. But I was like, wow, you can make things happen really fast when you're like out there making things happen versus all of the businesses I heard about at that time, because this was 2008 when the economy was like crashing. Everyone was going out of business during that time, and we were having our best year ever as a company. So the way that I got more into inside sales was, fast forward 4 years, I was a sales manager with that company. And then one of the first things they tasked me with was starting a call center. So I'm a 22-year-old kid, didn't know anything about working in corporate America, didn't know anything about dialers and software and like all of this other kind of stuff. And we're going to build out a call center. So we ended up having, at peak capacity, I think 25 or 30 agents, like a call center manager, all that kind of stuff. And that was how I learned like the inside sales game, because that was mostly outbound cold calling. And then that brings us to around 2013. I left that company. And then since then, I've been doing consulting on my own. And since 2016, really honed in on SaaS. So SaaS was at that time just exploding, and everyone was, hiring SDRs and doing all of that other kind of stuff. And we started out doing something very similar to what you guys are doing. We just got really exhausted running that business. I don't know how you guys do it.
Can't you see
It's
all the wrinkles?
exhausting.
I'm starting to get gray hairs.
Hey, you still got your hair, man, so it's an exhausting business to run. And I was like, you know what? What I love doing, my dream job at 19 was to become a sales trainer. As soon as I got to train other reps, and I saw Jeffrey Gitomer, who was really big back in the day, Little Red Book of Selling was the first sales book I read. I saw him do a seminar or two, and I was like, I want to do that. I want to get paid for that. So we shifted around COVID, right before COVID, into just doing exclusively training. So it's like, let's take all the things that we're doing now and let's look for companies that have product market fit. Like they have reps that are willing to put in the energy. They have enablement teams or whatever it might be. They're just missing the soft skills with their reps. They don't have good playbooks and process. They don't know what the best practices are right now that are working. Their leaders don't have a good system for reinforcing what they're teaching. Their AEs aren't self-sourcing pipeline, all of those things. And since then, we've worked with companies like Shopify and Zoom and Gong, and also your startup that's like building out their first sales team and everywhere in between. So long-winded answer to your question, but that's how I got to the place that we are now.
I love it. Question for you: how did you did you feel that all this started to come natural to you, or like when you were doing the door-to-door sales, did you have a really good manager that was investing time with you and coaching you up? Like, where did you really start to develop those skills?
I would say the first time that I went door to door, I remember because it was a 2.5 hour drive for me to come home to like my territory. So that was kind of the idea. You drive home to the place where you're going to be living over the summer. So my manager, who was my best friend at the time, he came out, and I remember sitting in my car waiting for him to come. And I was so nervous. I'm introverted, dude. And I used to be very, very introverted then. So the thought of knocking on people's doors and knowing people in my small town of 5,000, that was really nerve wracking. And I was like, shit, what am I doing? And then he showed me, honestly, through people saying not interested to him and like not slamming doors on us, but being like really rude to us for me to, and seeing how it just like didn't affect him at all. I was like, oh, this is not that big of a deal. That was actually the thing that got me. Now I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal for someone to reject you. You don't have to take it personally. Really what you want to do is show up, and that first impression, it's just like on the phone, your first impression, the first 10 seconds of smiling, being confident, addressing the person, your tonality, all of that stuff is like 10 times more important in person. Just looking the person in the eye, smiling, all of that kind of stuff. Once I kind of figured out the tricks, so to speak, that's what really sold me. So it was more seeing that it wasn't that big of a deal for someone to say no to you that really helped with my confidence at that time.
Yeah, that's really good experience. The door-to-door sales, I think that really builds.
It's like trial by fire experience.
Oh, dude, yeah. And now I'm like cold calling, like, dude, the worst thing someone can do is hang up the phone on you. Like, come on.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal. You're not interrupting people's dinners and walking 50 feet up to their door and they can see you through the window walk. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it says no soliciting. Yeah.
The no soliciting. I always ignore the no soliciting, dude.
That's funny. My first job that involved a computer was selling lead generation in the solar industry. And what's really popular is solar is door-to-door knocking. And so like a lot of the people we would sell to, they either like, oh, we have a door-to-door knocking team, or we're like doing a combination. So I got to like, it's an industry where it's very commonly used. Probably also when because it involves homes, you got to go visit, you can point things out to them. But tech sales, you're just behind your computer. All you got to do is, in some cases, turn on your video. It's not that hard.
In a lot of ways, I miss the door-to-door. The part that I miss about it is you can visually see if there's a need. Like you can literally go through census data and see where the neighborhoods are where people have money, and you can see if a house needs painted or not. B2B tech sales is very hard. Like I know people are like intent data is all the rage, but I mean, do you guys actually see that big of a bump in results using intent data? It's not really that like effective. You know what I mean? So it's like, I mean, I won't mention any specific company names, but there are a lot of businesses that are like losing customers right now because it's like they just can't prove the ROI of intent data.
Because there really isn't any. And we've tried them all in vast extents.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I mean, where I'm seeing things go right now is just back to the basics and the fundamentals. That's
Uh-huh.
been kind of a theme in the last year or two is like, okay, cool. People don't pick up the phone as much as they used to. There are ways around that. There are entire sales teams. This is sort of kind of outside of SaaS. There are entire sales teams that are scared to call cell phones. Like that's a way to
Mhm.
increase your pickup rate. There are solutions out there that help you identify cell phone numbers that are more likely to pick up. I've seen 25, 30+% connection rates with that. There are techniques around leaving a voicemail and pointing that voicemail to the email and using that to increase your reply rates by 2 or 3x on email. There are so many ways to do that, but just bringing the humanity back into sales with all the AI stuff going on. And I'm a huge fan of AI. Don't get me wrong. You have to be using it. But the people that I see struggling at cold calling are not good at it. They're just not good at it. It's, hey, John, it's Jason with Outbound Squad. Yeah. So we do sales training for companies like Gong, Hang Up. It's like, there's nothing like you're just pitching, you're doing all of the wrong stuff and then complaining that it doesn't work.
So how do we fix it? Well, no, I mean, I think cold calling right now for us, like we have roughly 70 plus clients going at a time. There's not a single one that isn't on cold calling because it's working. So what we
Yep.
found is that it's while challenging, while intimidating to many, it's the one channel that can't be automated by AI right now, and it's the one channel where
Yep.
you can go out and actually talk to people. And when we talk to customers, it's like, look, not everything needs to lead to a meeting. How about understanding why they went with the competitor? How about understanding how much longer are they in contract? Like, how about you learn a little bit? And what's the best way to do that is a conversation. Email, they're
Yep.
just going to ignore it. Now, yeah, there's ways to use those channels too to your advantage, but what we're finding is cold calling is the number one channel right now, and it's what's bringing the most meetings for all our clients.
It's the least crowded channel by far. I mean, ask any executive that you know, ask them how many phone calls they get, especially voicemails that they get compared to emails. It's literally like 100 to 1 emails to calls. It's insane.
What do you think is the biggest difference, I would say like cold calling in its heyday, like pre-COVID to now, is what do you think is like the biggest difference between just like outside of, people less likely to pick up, the biggest change that you've seen with SDR teams?
I think the biggest change that I'm seeing is the traditional SDR hire is someone that is a first or second job out of college. That's the
Mhm.
traditional SDR hire. And what I see is more and more and more an aversion to picking up the phone and talking to people. I don't know if that's a generational thing or not, but I see lots of people that are extremely reluctant to pick up the phone.
Yeah, I think it's intimidating for some people. They, especially first out of college, if you've never done this before, you've never been exposed to sales or even door-to-door sales, right?
Yep.
Is they have this stigma that if you call somebody on their cell phone or if you call somebody just out of the blue to pitch them something, it is bad. You should not do it. But these are how businesses are built. You have to talk to people. It's inevitable, you know?
100%. I think that one of the best things you can do and what our best clients do is, especially if you're not like a Shopify, let's say, and you're like a category leading company that everyone knows about, which I think that that's very underlooked, by the way. I think that a lot of companies don't take in consideration that, hey, when you say I'm so and so calling with, Zoom or something like that, it's like, yeah, people are going to listen to you compared to the startups that they
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't heard of. Like you have to
Mm.
acknowledge that. But just getting your reps to drink the company Kool-Aid, it's a little stuff like as a sales leadership team, you're blasting out all of the, hey, here's who's closed the biggest deal and here's who's at the top of the leaderboard right now. But what about sharing out customer stories when the product gets a great result for a customer? Having a whole just big database of customer stories and success stories and like, oh, we believe this, we just onboarded 2 new sales trainers at Outbound Squad. They drink the company Kool-Aid. They're 2 previous clients. They see the case studies, the results, like they feel like they're part of something that's really badass when they come on board. Your
Mhm.
reps should be really, really confident. So if nothing else, they could get on the phone and that conviction is going to come through. And I just don't see that. Like there's the drinking the company Kool-Aid and the conviction. And then there's the other part that people have been talking about forever, just around like the business acumen and understanding of the personas and the people that you sell to. It's
Mhm.
easier than ever to get that information. All of this lives right inside whatever you're using for a conversational intelligence tool that for whatever reason, these multiple billion-dollar valuation companies cannot figure out how to take what's in a transcript and spoon feed you, Chris, and say, hey, did you know that the VPs of sales you sell to, they've all been sharing these 3 common problems in the last 90 days. Like inject that in. Like, why isn't that a part of these? I don't know why that's not a part of these tools, but the transcripts are there for you to just drop into ChatGPT and say, what are our buyers talking about right now? That's your enablement material. Like, it's just right there. It's sitting right there, the knowledge.
It's incredibly powerful, and then we use this for ourselves too. And we roll it out for our clients also, because we record the transcripts of when we're on the calls. And you'll be surprised. Well, you're probably not surprised. Just the amount of companies that don't even think about this is like, okay, we have transcripts. We can actually learn why they don't care, why they do care. Where can we improve as an organization? And that's what also makes cold calling so valuable, is you're getting in the moment market feedback from your buyers. Where else are you going to get that? You don't get that from email because they're not going to respond to you. Don't get that from LinkedIn if they don't connect with you and respond to your LinkedIn request. And you're so limited in the LinkedIn channel as well. And so the only other place you can go is conferences to get direct feedback. But the calling is just, it has that wall up to where you get more brutal honesty over the phone than a face-to-face meeting. Typically.
Yeah.
You
know what I was just thinking of too, that would be the ultimate tool, is an open source conversational intelligence tool. It's just got the recorder. And then you can use your own prompts and stuff to have it do whatever you want with the data. It's like, there's just no excuse for that. I feel like if you have an L&D team, I don't know if I want to get into software, but it's like, if you have an L&D team or an enablement team, I mean, it's never been easier to create like really, really fine-tuned personas by industry, by role. I mean, like, it's never been easier to do that stuff, to give the rep the information that they need to have a pretty intelligent conversation.
We use our dialer. Essentially what it was doing is it was giving us, like, it was doing AI transcripts one call at a time, but wouldn't give us a summary across the day. And so what ended up happening is you rely on the SDR for their feedback. Well, what happens when you have a large SDR org is you're going to get wildly drastic feedback across every SDR, and reporting that back to clients creates inconsistencies. So what we did is we had to build out our own, take all the transcripts, then we started summarizing them on our own. And now we can now release that to our clients and give it, hey, like, rather than getting the SDR's feedback, here's the actual feedback. And this is summarized based off the calls for the day. And we're not even a software company.
I love that.
Extremely valuable though.
Yeah.
Well, this is the future of AI, I feel like, is having, people like you guys or whoever did that on your team, like someone that has like the knowledge and ability to be able to do a little bit of customization like that, or use APIs to pull in some of this stuff and in a kind of a DIY it a bit. Like, the future of AI, I think, is like, it's all org driven stuff. It's not like teaching reps to use ChatGPT to do account research. Like, don't get me wrong, like that's part of what we teach to like enterprise reps, and that's a valuable skill to have, but that should just be surfaced on the back end and dropped right into a Salesforce field. You know what I mean? Like, that's just should be automatically done for every single account and contact in there. Like, we're in an age where that's not too far away. I mean, Clay is already starting to do some of this type of stuff, although I do think it's kind of shitty for a lot of it. But it's like, we have a client that sells a podcast solution very similar to the one that we're on right now. And it's like, they just use Clay because they sell SMB. It needs to be high volume. They use Clay, and it just automatically pulls, like, do they have a podcast? Yes or no? What's the name of it? Do they have a YouTube channel? Yes or no? What's the name of it? Do they have video case studies on their website? Yes or no? It's like basic stuff to where you wouldn't even have to do any research to have a really intelligent conversation. Like, that to me is like, to answer your question, Chris, about the difference in cold calling, it's like, because it takes more effort to get people on the phone, you have to reduce effort somewhere else in order to make up for that. I don't think that there's this magical world where we take admin time off of a rep's plate and they just replace that with sales time. I don't think that actually happens. I think you just need to make it easier to do the task that we're trying to ask them to do.
You mentioned enterprise reps. It kind of leads me to a question, because I'm in a lot of sales calls every day, and I talk to people. Actually, one of our recent clients, I won't mention their name though, but they did not believe you could call enterprise level organizations, SVP and up, and cold call them. They just did not believe it. I told them, I was like, well, orgs are doing this every day. I was like, it's inevitable. Oracle's doing this right now. So it works. And, but how would you approach that? You've been in the game longer. If somebody came to you and said, I just don't believe that you can, have a cold calling function for enterprise deals.
I would say, it sounds like you've tried this before. What happened? Oh, we've never tried. Oh, cool. Well, sales is one of those things. It's like art and science, right? You're supposed to experiment and try stuff. And here's what XYZ client, I would just hear a customer story. That's my sales style. It's like, oh yeah, you must have tried this before. There's also lots of pickup rate data. I mean, I could point to all kinds of stuff. We did a pickup rate analysis with Orem, and it's like, the C-suite has a higher pickup rate than the SVPs. Like people are not calling.
I need that
the
study.
C-suite.
I can start using that.
I have it.
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I have it.
Well, you guys probably have all kinds of stuff just from your
we
own
use-
internal stuff
we
that you could
Orem
use.
too, so
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff in there, but I think that the idea that just because someone is really senior, that if they do decide to pick up the phone, that they're not going to be responsive to that. I mean, that's like these people are actually more responsive. These are the people like you guys. These are people that built the company. Like they respect the hustle.
yeah.
Especially if it's relevant to them. And that's the biggest
Yep.
thing too, is like if you come in and you actually have something that's relevant that they may have talked in their last board meeting, you might get an extra 30 seconds to actually, pitch and let them hear you out. Yeah, it just always blows my mind when I have these kind of tech founders come in. They're like, I just don't think we can do it. It's like, well, have you tried it before? There's current enterprise organizations doing it right now.
Yeah.
It does work.
I think sometimes it will vary on the type of founder. So if it's a technical founder, they're just used to being like behind a computer screen and getting things done. Whereas you have someone that is on the growth side of things and they're much more for it. So sometimes it will vary on the type of founder. If they built the product themselves, they probably never have cold called, and all they do is I hate getting cold calls. Why would I do that for my own organization? But they've never grown an organization. We're always on the product building side of things.
I do think there's something to, though. We did a big analysis with Gong. It's like 2 months old on 85 million cold emails. And you guys have probably seen the data on CTAs from Gong, like interest-based CTAs versus like time asks. And essentially the data for a long time, for those that are unaware, said that when we ask for interest, interested in discussing further, or does this sound interesting or worth a quick chat, that's more effective than saying, are you free next Tuesday at 3 p.m? About 2x. What we also tested in that data was the presence of an offer in the email. So what happens when we promise to give them something? So let's say that I sell ecom and I go to John, your website, and I notice that you're missing upsells in your cart. And statistically, we know that your average order value is, it could be 200% higher. It could be 2x if you had upsells. If I offered to share my cart audit with you, like that would statistically have a 28% higher reply rate than me asking you for your time. So like really thinking about the offer and what you're giving that person in return for their time is very compelling. We do a cold call audit. That's what we provide. It's super simple. It's very easy for me to execute. You can do, if there's stuff on the website that you can see, you could do a web audit, shopping cart audit, whatever it might be. There's free workshops that you could provide. There's introductions to people on your C-suite if it's enterprise stuff. There's inviting them to an exec dinner in the area if you're hosting one, or to a VIP dinner. There's all kinds of shit that you can do, but you got to think about like, what is it that you're actually giving the other person? And I think this is really hard to pull off if you don't have alignment from the sales team, because an AE also needs to deliver on that promise. Like if you said, hey, we're going to share with you how the top manufacturers in the world are dealing with a shortage of welding talent. Like I better, as an AE on that call, be able to like share that challenger insight with you. So it does require a bit of alignment, but you need to have, like, you really need to think about your offer.
I agree. That's incredibly important. We're actually running something for an e-commerce company right now that they target Klaviyo users across retail. So anybody that's using a Klaviyo email setup. And their Klaviyo's biggest problem is when you do like a promotion, like you go to a website and they're like 10% off for Christmas or something, put in your email. Well, all those emails or even cart checkout reminders are going to the promotional tab, and it's like 80% of people don't even look at the promotion tab in Gmail, right?
Yeah.
And they have a way to where they can move that out of the promotion tab into the primary tab. But we just put an offer in just saying, hey, we noticed your Klaviyo emails are, going into promotions tab. We'll let you try a free trial of our setup. We did this for XYZ company and they had like a 30%, additional conversion rate, just from using this setup. And it's been like a 30% positive response rate, which is incredibly astronomically high for email. It's like not standard, but it's because they have a good offer.
It's it's the Godfather. It's the offer you can't refuse, dude. It's like, I would feel stupid saying no to that.
Yeah. And everybody's dealing with the problem too.
Yep.
Jason, question for you. So when you go into companies, company hires you, you've worked with companies of all sizes. How much does it matter when the company is already established versus not established? Like, how does your approach when you come in to help out sales orgs? How does your approach vary when it's a no-name brand versus a well-known company?
This is where I feel like your guys' job is a lot harder than mine. Like you probably have a lot of those clients, I would assume, that are paying you to like good money to get leads for them and they have zero brand presence.
Yeah, and a website that has no like clarification on what they do.
That is so hard. Normally we would just say no to a client like that. I'm like, we can't like we're not doing the activity for you. So we have even less control than you guys do. You know what I mean? Over the output. Um, if it's the case that, let's say, it's not a category leader like a Shopify, but it's some other company that is like has a really good product and like has good marketing, but they don't have like as much brand awareness. The thing that you have to absolutely focus on is like the offer is one of those things. So you got to think about how you're going to differentiate from an offer standpoint. The language and like how specific and segmented you get is where I really try to focus more. So, for example, if you're selling cybersecurity, it's, oh, we're going to focus on, instead of the IT environment, we're going to focus on OT, the operational technology, and we're going to focus really heavily on medical manufacturers. So it's going to be medical devices that are of a specific size in America. And we're going to go after the security leaders there. I can be super, super segmented with my messaging that way. And I have to do that in order to stand out. So that would be a really big thing. The second thing is with the smaller companies, typically I find the senior leaders are way more involved in business development. So there's the whole like ghostwrite an email for your VP to send out and like those types of stuff that don't really scale as well that I'm going to do with a smaller company. Like the advantage you have is that you can get your C-suite to really engage in this type of stuff, where if you're at a publicly traded company, good luck getting your C-suite to engage on something that's not a Fortune 500 opportunity. So those are the two areas where I really like to double down with smaller companies.
So now let's move to an established company. They probably are paying their team well. Their management team is probably has a bunch of experience under their belt. When you go in to help these types of companies, how does that differ? Is it more of a like a culture type of build, or something like something's off and they need someone else to come in from an outside perspective to help figure out maybe a script or a potential channel improvement? Like, what does that look like?
This episode is sponsored by LevelUp Leads, a B2B sales development and appointment setting agency. Companies always need pipeline, but they oftentimes don't want to hire SDRs internally. The whole process is risky and expensive. You've got hiring costs, onboarding, training, additional spend on your tech stack, a few months to ramp up. And with that being said, SDRs are a high turnover position, and the person you hire might not necessarily work out, so you need to start all over again. That's why companies outsource this. LevelUp Leads allocates a team of people, their tech stack, so you can onboard and launch your campaigns in about a week. They set qualified meetings in your calendar so your team has more selling opportunities. Visit levelupleads.io today to learn more. All right, now back to the show.
I think the first thing that I look for, this is for anyone listening to that's looking just like change management within your company, if you're a sales leader or enablement leader, you have to have senior champions. We did a really big rollout, like 6 cohorts, 800 reps, and the VP of sales, the SVP of sales was like in that first cohort was in the actual workshops role playing cold calls with reps. Like that's what it takes. It takes senior leader participation. So with a big company, I know that that's the most important thing. You have product market fit. Your reps, when they name drop the company on the phone, people are going to listen. Like everything is check, 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 check. Like buy-in is my biggest concern at that point. So with like a really big team, it's senior leader buy-in. It's making sure the reps and the managers feel like they have input, and it's like just getting everyone on the same page and dialed in with what we're going to do. Those engagements, that's harder than the smaller companies. The part that's way easier is I have unlimited sales calls to listen to and pull transcripts from. They have great enablement content, like all of that. There's world-class sellers that we can talk to and get perspective on the buyer. Like all of that part's like way, way easier. Stakeholder buy-in, senior stakeholder buy-in is the most important part. I'll give you another example too. It's even little things like in your all hands calls, if you're really pushing outbound, are you talking about it in all hands calls? Is there a scoreboard? Are you celebrating this stuff? Is there a Slack channel for it? Are managers talking about it in their one-on-ones with their reps, in their team meetings? Like it's the facilitation and reinforcement of all of that stuff that becomes much more important.
And is there anything for anyone listening, an outside perspective, when you go into a larger organization, a well-established big enterprise company, anything that is surprising, maybe at this point not to you, but from an outside perspective on either maybe something is much better than you expect, or like actually dysfunctional, and you're like, oh wow, I can't believe a company this established actually isn't doing X, or they're not, using something that may be very obvious to someone in the tech space.
The best analogy I could think of is like, we all have those friends that are like, dating was never a problem for them because they were really good looking, but they didn't really have a lot of riz, just what the kids call it these days, right? Like that's what these big companies get away with. They have unskilled sellers that can get away with just name dropping the thing. And like the part that really surprised me about that was like how a lot of these big companies, like the train has started and there's so much momentum and the product is so world class that the business, like it can't fail anymore at that point. So what's really carrying the business is the fact that the product is really great and there's so much word of mouth and there's this huge marketing engine behind it. It's not because they're so good at selling it. I find the more talented sellers are the ones that had to sell chorus against Gong back in the day, right? Those are the more talented sellers. I have a really, really good friend that did that and competed in deals. And he's like, we pay him for sales consulting at Outbound Squad. Like he works with me on like enterprise deals, he's closed the largest deal at every company he's worked for. Chorus, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐸, a couple other ones I can't remember, so it's like, that to me is like, you don't see that at these larger companies. That was so surprising to me to learn that.
Yeah. And what I was about to share is like, we have a few large enterprise clients, very big, well-known global brands. And we were setting meetings for them and they weren't showing up. We're like, what? Like, how is that possible? Like, yeah, like it was like, this company is supposed to be so buttoned up. And so my point in sharing this is every company has like some type of dysfunction. Not everyone's as buttoned up as you think until you go in there and you learn a little like, oh, wow, they need help here. They're not doing this. Now, granted, this is one small part of the company, but there's just a lot to learn no matter the company's size, that not everyone's as good as you think. And like to your point, oftentimes you have a killer product that's driving inbound and people asking where can they swipe their credit card. It makes things a little bit easier.
My favorite one is when we're working with a company and you're in a meeting with CRO, VP of marketing, VP of sales, and they're like, okay, who should we target next? I'm like, guys, are y'all serious? Like, what? Okay, I guess I should get the salary then too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that happens more than you think.
It's crazy. I think that one of the big things that's so important at these larger companies is the most well-run companies I see, the senior leadership is like, they're not out of touch with what it's like to be a rep.
Yeah, that's important.
It's so important. It's so important. That doesn't mean that you're a CRO and you have an org with 1,000 plus, and you need to be hammering the phones like on a weekly basis. But like, dude, spend some time talking to reps. Listen, spot check a cold call or two. It's like, there's little stuff like this that I can't remember if it was Tim Cook or Steve Jobs. It was probably Tim Cook, because Steve Jobs, I don't think people would like hanging out with him at lunchtime. Tim Cook's is like, famous for like actually being in the cafeteria when people are doing more in person. I don't know if they're still doing the Apple or not, like just eating with like the employees there, and staying grounded with what that's like. And I think it's really easy to have this kind of ivory tower thing going where you're just up and you're doing all this strategy and like you can't get in front of your reps and motivate them, and like your reps should want you to be participating in like deals with them, and I just see too many instances where a lot of reps are like, I don't want my senior leader on a deal with me. Like I'm going to probably, my odds of winning the deal are higher without them. So that is so important at these larger companies.
I'm going to switch topics just a little bit here. I'm curious, what has your experience been with AI SDRs? Positive, negative? Like, have you tried it out yourself?
I haven't tried it. I've seen a lot of clients put AI SDRs into practice, and I see it working at the SMB level where it's just, you're firing off fairly templated emails to people that, if you're trying to get someone in the C-suite to give you time at a Fortune 500, like that person's inbox and like the sophistication of that buyer is very different from the person that owns the t-shirt shop down the street, Yeah. So I've actually seen clients implement AI SDRs very effectively at the SMB level with like email campaigns. I haven't seen anything, and I really cringe inside when I see a lot of the stuff that it's sending, but it's like it's working in the sense that there's an ROI off of that. Like what it produces is significantly higher than what it costs. I'd be curious your guys' take if you've done a lot of this stuff, but I'm not very hopeful for the AI SDR.
For the clientele we serve, it just doesn't fit, into who we operate with. Now, if we were like going to work with like a big insurance company that's doing like a to consumer play, probably you could squeeze something out with something like that because you're selling health insurance, right? Or property and casualty. But it's just there's no way that we could spin up an AI SDR and it actually be effective for who we're trying. You get one shot with a lot of these guys, and you send the wrong AI email on an autopilot, you can lose accounts that way. It's just, yeah, maybe one day it'll get there. Who knows?
I'm trying to keep an open mind. I see a lot of talk about it online, but I just haven't really seen any of the results or people raving about it. So I'm just trying to keep an open mind. And I did see one of them just released a integration with 𝐼RCall. I forget the name, but it's like, so there's a calling function, human based, not AI based, on top of the AI SDR. So it's innovating, but yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Well, what are your guys' thoughts on the AI coaching? Like
That
I won't mention specific names, but like one of these tools, I tried cold calling like the sales leader persona and I couldn't land a meeting with it. I'm like, I'm pretty good at cold calling, you guys, that was like tough.
Yeah, I think with the training, it's more to like get your reps in and like, practice your objection handling, practice like getting your kind of your elevator pitch down for new reps. But if someone like you going in, it's probably not going to be as effective because you don't need that just like fundamental training, right?
Yeah.
But if it's like for high level, it's really going to like teach me how to cold call and like be effective. It's not really for that. It's more just like learning the content material, learning how to, handle those objections as they come up because you can randomize it too. But yeah, they're difficult. We've used a couple and we use one right now. And that's not something that's you can easily set a meeting up for, even though if you probably got on the phone right now, you could probably book a meeting pretty easily.
I found ChatGPT like chatting back and forth with that to be pretty helpful once you kind of feed it the right prompts and stuff. I think that technology is going to get pretty good though. And again, I'm really surprised that a lot of these sales engagement tools don't, like, why wouldn't that be built into the sales engagement platform?
Well, it should be. And the good thing about like working with an LLM, it's all the longer you work with like one LLM, the more it learns about you, the more context it has and like who you are and how you sell, that it becomes more effective over time the more that you use it. And that can be extremely helpful for sales and marketing team, especially has that kind of like contextual brain, part of it as well.
There's actually a few different use cases that one a company where we talk with the founder often at Trellis, they built in something where you can actually have the practice bot as part of the interview process. So they have to go into the tool and then they have to like talk to the bot. So that was, I found cool. We don't have that up and running yet, but I thought that was a cool feature and probably some of the other dialers will have that soon. It is in our space, because we're working with a lot of different clients. One, we use it for onboarding internally. But then when we put them on a client, it's also part of our onboarding process. Like, hey, you have to go and practice the script on this bot before you can go start calling live. So like we found it very useful in that sense. And then also it will raise some questions that they can then bring back to the client. Like, hey, I ran into this roadblocker. How has this been dealt with? And we can do all that and get the errors out of our system before we actually start live.
That's cool. Yeah, that technology I feel like is really, really close to where it needs to be.
Well, because I look at stuff on RepView because I always get clients asking because they're taking it into like a procurement team and they're trying to equate hiring versus using an agency. So oftentimes I'll break down the math and I take a lot of information from RepView just because that's typically they have the best information. I don't know how valid it is, but they have pretty decent information. And when you're going into teams, because you work with so many different teams, how do you feel quota attainment is there for like these, sales development reps and account executives? Do you feel like they're trending upwards now, just, as a whole of like hitting quota attainment, or do you feel like it's starting to trend down? And what are you kind of gathering from that?
I feel like I have a really bad sample size of data for that, because like a lot of the clients, like these are people that have extra budget to spend on this stuff. And like they are investing in their reps and there's maybe a bit of bias in the data. I've seen a trend of it going up with SDR teams. And the reason for that is they're aligning more of the SDR org around the end outcome. It's like they're being mostly comped on opportunities created and pipeline created. And the meetings being sourced is a very small part of their compensation. And what I saw at first a couple of years ago is like there was kind of a dip. And 2022, like Q1 of 2022, I feel like was really big with software companies where a lot of these PE and VC firms were like, we're not going to give you any more money. And that was like a correction that happened on these SDR teams where, hey, we have whole SDR departments that don't generate a positive ROI for us. Like we need to cut and figure that out. So I've seen higher attainment because people are paying more attention to it now.
Well, I would say your sample sizes, according to Refu, your sample size would be correct then.
Oh, really?
Because that's what they're saying is like 22, like beginning of 23, it was actually dipped down to like 40% attainment, and now it's like into 2024, 2025, it's like trending up towards to 50%.
Holy shit!
Attainment.
It's like I looked at that data or something. Yeah, that's
I know.
like anecdotally.
He's got it up on the other screen.
Yeah, yeah. That's
yeah,
funny.
that was my question. Just because you're working with so many reps, it'd be interesting to just see what you see on the inside.
Jason, so what about moving forward? You know, everyone's always asking, okay, how do you see the next few years, or what's changing? Like, I know it's kind of a silly question, but like for you and for us, we get the privilege of seeing a lot of different companies. They open up the curtains for us, and we can see a little bit on maybe their sales process, what's working, what's not working. But for you, like, where do you kind of see? And we can specify with cold calling if you want, but like, where do you kind of see the market going over the next year or two?
I'm honestly very worried about the future of cold calling, and I have been for a really long time. The connect rate issue. You know, like there's tools that we talked about before that will help you identify the numbers that are more likely to pick up. Well, what happens when that company really blows up and they have all of these reps calling all of these people that, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What happens after that? It feels like a short-term fix. And now there's the iPhone gatekeepers, and Google Voice has had this for the longest time. Android, it's like we keep finding these things to kind of shortcut and chew through data faster, or find the pockets of data that are willing to pick up. But it's like, we're even like in B2B now, it's like highly subject to the do not call list. You know what I mean? Like all of these data providers are like, they want you to scrub through the do not call list. That's like over 75% of America, dude, is on the do not call list. So I really think the future is the offer. It's like, what are you going to give people that is different? And I think the big elephant in the room is the marketing engine is the ceiling of your outbound engine. Like you can only be as good at outbound as you are at marketing. So the future really is like, how do I pump out content and thought leadership and all of this other stuff to generate interest in what we are doing so that my outbound is on people that are already brand aware? And then how do I punch through and give them something really valuable, whether that's these exec dinners, events, the audits, the whatever it is. Like that's really the future, in the sense that, like, it's not that people haven't already been doing that. It's like, I think that's just kind of what you're going to need to do to even make it work. So I think the future for cold calling is very bleak, if I'm being honest.
I like hearing that.
I don't like it either, dude. This is what we make our living off of. Like, dude, tell me if you feel differently, but the connect rate, it's just going to continue going down, man. And you can only like cherry pick the numbers that are willing to call, and you can only dial so fast. And like, there's an end to that working.
I mean, it's tough to disagree. The only positive note I could say is from last year to this year, we bumped up our dial to connect by 2% as an organization. Now that's across a lot of different companies. We've tried adding in different data sources and waterfalls. So like, there could be a few different factors there, but on a positive note, if you're listening, that, we did see a bump there. But yeah, it's tough, especially if we keep saying cold calling is the number one channel. Eventually everyone's going to keep listening to us.
We'll just go back to email.
Yeah, and good Lord, email is like even harder. Like the gatekeepers in email, the supermans or whatever that tool is called. There's all kind superhuman. There's just so much friction into getting into someone's inbox. And then LinkedIn has it. People talk about LinkedIn, but I'm like, LinkedIn doesn't really work that well for most buyers. There's few personas here and there where it works pretty well. And then what do you have left? It's like, you got the old school, like the in-person stuff. You got the, direct mail. Like there's all kinds of stuff. And I'm not saying cold calling is going to die. It's just becoming so inefficient to do most of this stuff. Like the way that you guys, this is why I think there's such a big future for like agencies like your guys, where you like someone can outsource it, because you're getting a very specialized service offering where it's like you're doing what companies, I don't want to say they can't, I think they're unwilling to figure out how to do themselves. It's like, hey, on your ops team, you should have people finding phone numbers and emails for the reps so they don't have to fucking go on LinkedIn Sales Navigator and figure out which of the 4 cell phone numbers is John's number. You know what I mean? Like, you can do that at your firm. You can have the technology to layer in all of this AI stuff. You can use the phone technology. Like most of these companies don't do that stuff. These really large companies that have hundreds of millions of dollars to throw at the problem aren't doing the things from a workflow and technology standpoint that you would think that they would be doing. That it just doesn't work unless you do that stuff.
That's something that I see when like orgs come to us and they already have an SDR team kind of set up, like, like 50% is some of these SDRs are just like glorified secretaries. They're doing everything from ops to, like actual admin work. And then maybe 20% of the time actually selling, and prospecting.
I think some of it is like the justification for some reason with the execs. It's so much more straightforward to buy ZoomInfo and say, hey, we're paying X amount of dollars per year per seat than to add headcount of people that are going to like do some of this stuff and offload. Like imagine if you had one master account for all of your data and you had a team of people using those accounts, or just accounts for the ops people that are using it and they're doing all of the list building instead of paying per rep. Like that's how it should be done.
What we see and what Chris was in some of his sales calls is like these teams have internal SDRs, but when it comes to when we ask them how many dials are they making per day, it'll be like 20. They'll get stuck to internal meetings, building lists, doing research, and it's easy. Like I've been an SDR before. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of try to avoid making some phone calls. Like it's not unless you're like really, really, really hungry. It's easy to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll send that email follow up rather than getting on the phones. And so that's what's great about us is like it's in our deliverables. Like we have to do it, otherwise we'll breach our contract.
One thing that kind of blew my mind is company we're talking to, they were taking their SDRs to conferences, like a lot of conferences. I think it's okay to go to like one every now and then just to like bring them to the show. But it's like, that's for the executives to go in and your higher level salespeople to go in and meet people. Your SDR should be back home prospecting 24/7, but they were bringing them to a conference a month. And that's like a week of prospecting, just kind of gone right there.
There's so many things you could do to like with the SDR to do the dinner invites around the conference, do the follow-up around like there's so much. I want to ask you guys one other thing before we hop. Future of in-person, hybrid, work from home. What do you guys think that's going to look like in the next couple of years?
Well, I'll tell you this. We're trying to make a push to start going to some more conferences. So actually, Chris and I are going to the Go-to-Market conference in DC next week. Mm-hmm. So we haven't done a lot of that. So I'm going to try to feel that out. It's just like, how does that work for us? Now, for our clients, we see it work really well. It's tough. I don't know how much they're spending to go to these and then the booths and like flights, like it adds up. So I don't know exactly if it's all turned into an ROI.
What about like your team, like having them come into an office full time or part time? Like, because I'm seeing a huge push for hybrid, at least 3 days in the office. And I think that's part of why the attainment is higher.
I think for like traditional orgs, like what you're working with, it makes sense. And I think there is a level of having people in the office that is good. Hence why we're also going to conferences. But for someone like an agency like us, if we were to have an office set up, well, now you just increased our price like 2x, right? For us to be like profitable as a company. And even enterprise buyers, they don't want to do that. The whole part of the reason why they come to us is they can get a package deal. They can work with a company, but also kind of lower that overhead on top of it instead of building out the SDR team. So if we were just going to be an in-house SDR team, you start getting kind of that area is like, we're almost like a talent. We might as well just become a talent pipeline at that point. Like you sign on for us, we'll train them up, then send them over to you, which could be a business model. But I just don't see that being something for us like in the near future. I don't think it would work for what we do.
I think there's some, I've been working remote for the past 10 years and big fan of that, but there's a lot of things over time, the longer you do it, the things people get away with by working remote, like no matter the age of somebody or the experience, there is like, part of me is like, man, should I put a timer on this guy? Like I can't trust him. Like, whereas like there is that in-office thing where it's like, that would just be taken care of. But then you have the other part of it is like, then our prices would need to go up.
I think if we knew what a lot of reps that work from home full time were actually doing, you would be horrified at what they're doing throughout the day.
Yeah. All right, we can wrap this up. Jason, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I really appreciate it. Where can the audience find you if they want to get in touch or check out some of your content?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Outboundsquad.com is probably the best place to go. We got a ton of free content there. We only work exclusively with companies. So if you're like, hey, we're not necessarily wanting to outsource this, or maybe we want to do a little bit of both, we have reps that we want to train. That's sort of our specialty. So we train reps, train the managers, build the playbooks, all of that kind of stuff. And then LinkedIn would be the other place. I post basically every weekday content. So there's a bunch of stuff on there. We focus exclusively on top of funnel pipeline creation. So everything related to outbound, you could check out there. So outboundsquad.com or follow Jason Bay on LinkedIn.
All right. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah,
Catch you on
it was
the
fun,
next
guys.
episode.
Thanks, guys.